Ripley is, as I mentioned, a brand new show on Netflix that just premiered a few weeks ago, not too long ago, and I got a chance to check it out. But this is technically the, I believe, third live action adaptation of the talented Mr. Ripley book from Patricia Highsmith. There was a 1960 movie that came out called Purple Noon. I think it's a French film. But probably the most famous live action adaptation of this source material is the talented Mr. Ripley film that came out in 1999, starring Matt Damon. Tremendous movie. One of the more underrated Matt Damon performances, I think, probably because it was so early in his career, but absolutely extraordinary film. But now we have this new series that's starring Andrew Scott. So it's obviously a much longer story that they're telling here over the course of 8 episodes as opposed to a traditional 2-hour movie. And because I had seen that 1999 movie and I was just so impressed by it, I certainly wanted to check out this new series. And Andrew Scott is just, he's making such an incredible name for himself. I just recently talked about him with All of Us Strangers. He's also extraordinary in Fleabag. If you haven't seen him in that show, he's great. I think that might have been the first time that I really noticed him. But I wanted to check this out. And ultimately, just to keep it quick and brief, Ripley, this TV series, it's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. It's already become one of my favorites of the year so far. It's still early in the year. There's still a lot to come out, but it's definitely one of my favorites. There's so much to enjoy about this show. I think first and foremost, I got to talk about the pedigree of the talent involved. Steven Alien, he is one of the most accomplished screenwriters in Hollywood history. I think his most famous work is Schindler's List. He's collaborated with Steven Spielberg a number amount of times. He's largely written for most of his career, but he created the show and he directed all of the episodes. In addition to that, I have to point out also Robert Elswith, who's the cinematographer of the show. He's also incredibly celebrated. He somehow is responsible for the 1-2 punch in 2007 of There Will Be Blood and Michael Clayton, two of the best movies to come out that year, and he was the DP for both of those movies. It's still kind of extraordinary to think about, but he's been on an incredible run as a DP, and I mentioned them two in particular just because of the talent that they bring to the show, because the directorial style and the cinematography are so integral to the story. This show is entirely in black and white. And if you don't know about Ripley, the talented Mr. Ripley, that source material, ultimately it's about a con man. It's about a guy who comes from New York City. He comes into contact with a very wealthy family, and he basically becomes a con man and gets over on people. He steals identities, he steals money, he steals resources, and he's also responsible for death and murder. He very much becomes a true con man in every sense of the word. And you just kind of see and follow his I guess his adventures coming in contact with many people, and then also him sort of being on the run as an investigation starts to brew around some of the crimes that he's committed, and how he's able to take on many different forms and many different identities, and ultimately outrun the authorities at many points in time. But the cinematography for this show and the fact that it's entirely in black and white, that might turn off some people, but I found it to be one of the greatest strengths of the show, just because Andrew Scott's portrayal of Tom Ripley as a character, it's so cold, it's so calculated, it's so chilling. The fact that this entire show is devoid of color is amazing, because it also feels like a true traditional crime noir. You know, it almost feels like a Hitchcock movie. You know, it almost feels like Psycho or Strangers on a Train, you know, something that feels real old school and throwback. And the fact that we are following somebody who is just like a con man and responsible for death and murder, I think makes all the sense in the world. And also one of the intriguing elements about Ripley as a character, it's not so much that you're interested in the way that he commits murders. It's kind of the time and the intention that he spends to getting out of the situations that he puts himself in, following the cleanup, the aftermath, how he has to, you know, clean up all the mess that he's made. That's the most interesting stuff. There's entire episodes where he'll do something and it's like, oh shit. And that happens in like the first 10 or 15 minutes. And then the next like 45 minutes, you have to watch him clumsily figure out how to get out of the situation. And it's clumsy for sure. Like, it almost feels like a Coen Brothers movie at several points in time, where it's like, yo, this is obviously how it would be if you tried to really commit a murder. It would be messy. It would be completely clumsy. You wouldn't know what to do. You would fuck things up. You would certainly leave behind very, very crucial information, fingerprint, all sorts of stuff. That's the reality of how it would be. And I love how much time and attention is spent on that stuff in the show, because there's many moments where there's really not much dialogue. You're just like watching the scenes unfold. So it becomes a really cerebral experience, almost as if you're in Tom Ripley's mind and experiencing it with him, because he is so calculated, even though he does move around sometimes very, very much in a clumsy way. And he has to, sort of figure out how to outsmart the authorities and outsmart investigators. But Andrew Scott, extraordinary. He's incredible in this show. I mean, once again, he just knocks it out of the park. I certainly expect him to be nominated for many Emmys in terms of his acting ability. Really, really enjoyed Dakota Fanning here. I thought she was amazing. This is probably the best work that I've seen out of her lately, since she's sort of grown into this adult actor now. We obviously were introduced to her as a child, and we saw her in The Equalizer 3, but I think we kind of both felt that she didn't really do all that much in that movie. She was just kind of
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But in this one, she's extraordinary. She's really, really great here. And then also Maurizio Lombardi. He's the inspector in this show. He's kind of the main person chasing after Tom Ripley, and
Hmm.
chasing after the person that's committing all these crimes. Amazing. He's so good. He also has to be bilingual in many scenes because much of this show takes place in Italy, and so a lot of it is in
Mm.
Italian. And so he's doing a lot of bilingual, sort of acting in the scenes, whether he's talking in English or talking in Italian. But he feels so focused and so driven to figure out this crime. He kind of reminded me a little bit of the judge in Anatomy of a Fall, the French judge in that movie, who was just
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
he was like hitting threes from 50 feet out. Like, this guy is on his shit, like in every possible way. But he's also kind of met
Yeah.
his match as well. He's met somebody that is also like damn near as smart as he is and can figure out a way how to get out of stuff. And so it's a great watch. I don't want to say it's an easy watch, because if you can't handle like murder and graphic stuff, then that's like kind of tough. But the fact that it's in black and white makes it a little bit more digestible.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's an easy watch from the perspective of, you can just kind of watch it and experience it. There's not a ton of dialogue, it's just one of those shows that feels cerebral and something to sort of experience and just kind of allow it to wash over you in that way. And so I really enjoyed it. I would certainly recommend people check out Ripley if you enjoy crime thrillers, if you want to find something new that you don't have to watch right now, or if you're just interested to see Andrew Scott as a talent, to see what he's capable of, because he's certainly becoming one of the better working actors in Hollywood today. So I was really impressed by everything with Ripley.
Man, I just finished All of Us Strangers like 2 days ago. I was like, this dude is the whole movie. Like Andrew Scott is like 95% of All of Us Strangers. Like it was so crazy watching him do just work, man. He's like you said, very talented. So I have to check out Ripley for sure. And then Dakota Fanning, man. She, Watchers is coming soon. We just talked about Watchers a little bit in the draft, when the movies I drafted. So we'll see what she does too, man. But after hearing you talk about it, yeah, I got to go check it. It kept popping up on Netflix too. I had other things I needed to watch first, but like I was like, dang, I can't watch it yet. I'm gonna come back to you. So I'm glad to hear it. It'll be worth me going back.
Absolutely. Well, folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new crime thriller series Ripley on Netflix. If you've checked this out, hit us up and let us know what you think.